So, welcome to the first wellbeing session hosted by the Almsbrook Community Organisation. Today's session is an introduction to wellbeing and a short introduction to mindfulness. So, today we're going to discuss the aims of the wellbeing programme that's been put together by the organisation. And then we're going to discuss briefly what wellbeing is and why it's important. We're going to do the same thing with mindfulness. So, what mindfulness is, why it's important. Then I'm going to give you the links so that you can try a short mindfulness session for yourself. And then after that, I just want to draw your attention to questions and feedback that I'd like you to send to us, so we can develop the programme to be more tailored to what people from the Almsbrook community want and need. And give you an idea of future sessions that we're hoping to host. So any feedback on those would be greatly appreciated. So the main aims of the programme are to provide a platform and a safe space for people to share experiences and ideas regarding wellbeing and mental health. And it's a space that people can go to if they need help or need a little bit of direction of where to go. But it needs to be really clear that we're not healthcare professionals. We're just doing this on a voluntary basis. So we're here as a stepping stone, really. We can provide you with resources. We can give you a few ideas, resources that we've got from reputable sources, but we're not healthcare professionals and we can't give you professional advice. We're always happy to talk through if you need anything, but we can put you in the direction of healthcare professionals if need be. And we're hoping to give regular updates, which include things like mindful moments to kind of set you up for the week, practices that can be suitable for everyone, whether that be adults or children, that's easy to do at any sort of time. And then sort of building on that, trying to integrate these practices into our day-to-day lives, particularly given the current COVID-19 situation, trying to build on things whilst we're in lockdown that can be applied once we're eventually out of lockdown too. And then if people want it, we can host some specific sessions on coping with an isolation during COVID-19, whether, specific guidance for dealing with children who are struggling to cope, dependent on what everyone sort of wants from these sessions. So, we'll be keen to get your input on that in the feedback. And then we also just want to continue to encourage that community support and engagement that we do really well in Elmsbrook, but trying to build on that and make everyone a bit more positive and a bit more open, really, in helping and discussing things like wellbeing and mental health. So what is wellbeing? What is this whole thing that we're trying to drive? Well, wellbeing, as defined by the Oxford English Dictionary, is a state of being happy, comfortable, and healthy, which I think is a little bit too broad. I think it's a bit misleading as well, the idea of being happy and happiness being the centre of well-being. I don't think that's really true. There's a bit more to it than sort of moment-to-moment happiness, and it's a concept rather than, something that's got a really hard definition. So I found a really good overview of well-being on one of the NHS websites, which covers the idea of being content and engaged alongside sort of functioning and feeling of control. And I think that's really important. I think that is a better definition of what well-being is. You know, you're not always going to feel happy, but you can be content even if you're not dealing with a particularly pleasant situation, and you can still be engaged in those situations and alongside that functioning well. So you might not feel like you have control over a situation, but you can have control over what you do and how you respond to that situation, and that's really key. So it's a lot more than just being happy. It's, you know, it covers a whole breadth of different things, with, I think, the main one being that you function well, that you have some sort of control, and that you're content and engaged, and you're able to accept a situation that you're faced with. There's lots of different types of well-being, and I think this is probably just a small handful. You could break each of these dimensions down even further, but we're going to focus mainly on mental well-being and cultural well-being. And the reason I say this is because I think all well-being has a mental component to it. I don't think you can have any other branch of well-being without considering mental well-being. And then the reason that I've circled cultural as well is because, being a, you know, quite strongly connected community, I think it's quite important that we consider that as part of this group. And that doesn't mean to say that we won't consider things like financial, environmental, or physical well-being, but it's not going to be our main focus. We might have short sessions on it if we get that sort of consensus from your feedback, but you know, we are going to target more than that mental and more community rather than cultural well-being as a whole. I've discussed well-being quite a lot. I appreciate it's been quite brief, it's been quite a rapid overview, but hopefully it gives you a bit of a starting point and a bit of an understanding of what we're trying to do with this group. And one thing that's often associated with well-being is mindfulness. So we thought it was a good place to start these sessions off, and this kind of gives you a flavour of the sort of webinars we're looking to hold in the future, if you think that these are helpful and worthwhile. So we're going to start with an introduction, and a very brief introduction really, into mindfulness. For what is mindfulness? The word gets branded around quite a lot, but what actually is it? And there's a fantastic app and website called Headspace, and all of the quotes that I'm going to list are from that website. So the idea of mindfulness is about being present in the moment. Okay, what does that mean? What does being present in the moment actually mean? So it's an idea of being engaged in where you are and what you're doing at any given moment. So often when you're doing anything, you can be really, really focused, but your mind can wander and you can get a bit distracted. Your thoughts can take over. And this idea of being present in the moment is being able to distinguish when you're being distracted and when your thoughts are taking over, and being able to say, okay, I accept that I've had this thought, and try and move on from it. Try and bring yourself away from those thoughts and become engaged in what you're doing or where you are. So the little cartoon that I've got up at the side, the idea of your body is present. So you are physically present in this moment. Say you're sat in your living room, or you're out in the garden, you're at work or on the train. But where's your mind? Is your mind in that place? Possibly not. You might be thinking about last week. You might be worrying about next year. And the idea is bringing your mind back to where you are right here and right now. And it's about doing it without judging yourself. You know, we all do it. We all get distracted by our thoughts, but they are just thoughts. And there's no point beating yourself up about it. So the idea of mindfulness is saying to yourself, okay, I accept I've got this thought and it's just a thought. I'm going to push it away and try and get myself back to where I am now. And that's a lot easier said than done. It's not the most difficult thing in the world, but it does take practice. But from experience, I find that it is actually a very, very useful skill to have. But what is mindfulness? Is it just meditation? The two often get associated quite a lot, but there are some distinct differences. So the idea of mindfulness is that it's something that doesn't happen just in a moment. It's something that you can apply day to day. So if you're faced with a situation, you're able to quickly apply the techniques of mindfulness to that situation. And it doesn't get rid of stress. And it doesn't, mean that you're going to live your life super happy all the time. But it makes you aware of when you're thinking about something that's unpleasant and what your emotions are doing and how they affect you. And it means that when you're faced with something that's very difficult, you're in a much better position to deal with it. So you might deal with it more calmly, or you might find that if you're feeling stressed, you might change your behaviors in order to reduce that stress. Meditation is what we use in order to learn mindfulness. So in order to practice this technique of accepting our thoughts but trying to move away from them and being engaged in a specific moment, we use meditation in order to do that, so that when we're faced with it in real life, we can then apply it. There's lots of different introductory mindfulness sessions. I've spoken about Headspace, and I do think Headspace is very good. And there is a free version and there's a paid for version. Personally, I haven't paid for mindfulness. I find that the free content is very helpful. And recently, in light of the current COVID-19 outbreak, they've provided some short 10-minute sessions on dealing with stress, going for walks, which I think are really, really nice. And they're a really good introduction to mindfulness if you've never done it before as well. So please take some time to visit the link that I've put below. Most sessions are about 10 minutes. You can do longer ones. 5 to 10 minutes is all that people really need. Practice it. They say practice daily, but you could practice a few times a week, even once a week. Any sort of practice really helps. And it's quite alien to begin with. I'm not going to beat around the bush. It's a very strange concept, but once you do start practicing and you then are faced with difficult situations, you do notice the difference. I'm a really big fan of it. And I think it's a really good way to become or to have a bit more of a positive attitude, and you notice that you're just able to deal with situations much more calmly and in a much more positive way than you might have done before. So I think it really is, there's a reason why it's linked to well-being quite a lot. So we're hoping that we can either host or provide you with a lot of resources in mindfulness, and possibly following the lifting of the current restrictions in the UK, we might be able to host sort of in-person sessions, whether that be weekly or bi-weekly, whatever the general consensus is really. But hopefully the sort of overview that I've given you today gives you a bit of an introduction, and you've got the resources then to find out a little bit more. So this is a very new concept that we've put together, and like I said at the beginning, we're not professionals in this. We're just going off resources that we've been given. I have a similar setup at work. So we have a group at work where people host mindfulness sessions, they host wellbeing sessions, they provide us with resources, sort of trying to emulate that really for Elmsbrook. But we really want it to be guided by you, because you're the ones that are going to benefit from it if you need it. So we'd really appreciate your feedback in what you want, whether you want specific sessions on mental health, such as anxiety and depression, or whether you want something a little bit more light-hearted. And that's not to say that we can't have both of those things. You know, we can divide our resources across the whole breadth of different topics that people want. So some of the things that we've sort of come up with so far are sessions on sleep and improving your quality of sleep. There's a thing that's sort of battered around quite a lot about sleep hygiene. So we can do a session or a few sessions on sleep hygiene and offer resources on that. Coping with fear and anxiety, which is quite a prevalent one at the moment because we are in quite scary, uncertain times. And it's, you know, wouldn't be surprised if people are feeling a bit more anxious than they would be normally, whether that's social anxiety or generalized anxiety. You know, we're looking to do sort of a few sessions possibly on coping mechanisms for that, and then sort of just generally nurturing that mental well-being. So ways in which we can improve our mental well-being, you know, whether that be through just putting up resources on Facebook or having webinars. Happy to have sort of roundtable discussions, and then I've put up their forest visualization, but these are the sort of techniques that are linked to mindfulness. So, you know, you can do your sort of standard mindfulness session, but we can try doing something that might be a bit more innovative, something that's a little bit different. I said previously as well, we're going to try and aim to make these sessions fairly child friendly as well. There might be some that are a little bit more orientated towards adults, particularly with sort of the fear and anxiety and more of the mental health topics, but we can do sessions that are targeted towards children or targeted towards parents who might have children that are struggling to cope or just want to practice sessions with their children just to generally improve their well-being. You know, it might be that as a whole the Elmsbrook community feels like this isn't necessary and that we don't need this. But again, please let us know. Please let us know how we can improve, whether we need to improve the communication that we're putting out there. I'm hoping that following the lockdown, once the restrictions are lifted, we can have more face-to-face meetings, whether they're held at the community house or at the business centre. You know, we are really open to anything really, whatever is going to be helpful. And even if just one or two people turn up, if it means that we're helping, you know, more people in that way, then that's something really. So I'd say thank you for listening. I really hope that you have found it informative. I know that it's been quite brief. It's been quite a high level overview, but I'm really hoping that it's given you a bit of an introduction, and really looking forward to hearing your suggestions and comments. And yeah, just stay safe, stay stay happy, stay safe. We're here if you need anything, even if you just need to talk. Someone is here. So that's it really. So thank you very much for listening.